What is going on? Good morning, everybody. Another day, another dollar, another opportunity for us to be checking the markets. We're going to be going over ETH, BTC, USDT, and some additional alts as far as some alarms that have been basically just bombarding me over the last couple days or so. So we're going to be looking at a couple of them. Clo is one of them. Clo is on a rampage right now, but nevertheless, this is going to be an opportunity for you guys to learn something about the market, learn something about your current positions, look for confluence. And of course, if you guys have any questions for me, always feel free to put them inside of the chat section. We'll give people a little bit of an opportunity to hop on in here. What's going on, Sponge? Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are well. I'm going to go ahead and look at some charts here in the meantime. Start getting a gander as far as what we're looking at. Now, before I go into this breakdown, there is a full text version of this, if you will, that's inside VIP. So if any of you guys are, want to go back to it, maybe you don't want to hop onto the video and, scroll through and look at how those ideas formulated. It's all fully broken down inside of our VIP section. It's inside that thread. It's a 4-hour POV bearish view. But I'll recap kind of what we were discussing yesterday in yesterday's stream and what I've been kind of sharing with you guys over the last couple days. Cash markets just opened here in the last 2 minutes. So we're going to look at a 15-minute session first. We tested previous. These orange lines that you see here, these are previous New York sessions. So what we're going to do, we're just going to utilize those. And we don't know where that's going to end. So we're just going to go ahead and mark it out over here for right now as that starts to develop. And we have those there in its current placement right now. We'll give it about 15 minutes or so we can get that first 15-minute session range, see where that direction is going to take us. I'm going to take us over to the 4-hour again and just kind of step this out. All right. We have a bat pattern that played out beautifully, right? We went to wave B, took wave B with no problem, no issues. We actually took a wave C on that as well too. So typically when you're utilizing harmonics, wave C's are typically going to be heavier profit taking levels. So there's heavier profits that we're taking inside of that zone, at least for my longs. And I know most harmonic traders, that's typically where they're going to find them. One thing that I've been kind of sharing with you guys is that patterns follow patterns. So this purple pattern that you see right over here, this is going to be a total pattern. This total pattern developed off of this bat pattern. So not really diving too much into the details. What we're focusing on is going to be the PRZ zone, which sat right inside this area. So you can see this is the reason why we started moving sideways. If you're utilizing harmonics, is once you get into that PRZ zone, and PRZ being price reversal zone, excuse me. Once you get into that price reversal zone, you're going to see some type of chop sideways movement. In this particular case, it's going to look like we're tapping into a supply, and then you're going to start to seeing distribution starting to formulate from those levels. Then we essentially have a small little breakdown here in this area. This green pattern that you see, this is something that I'm looking at it developing into essentially a wave 1, where the wave D, then we're going to have a push up to a wave 2. A little bit more on that here in a second, but I just wanted to focus on and show you guys how patterns do follow patterns in that regard. So my targets right now going into for the remainder of the week is I want to see 1670 and 1637 inside that area. That's what I would utilize as a price reversal zone inside that zone. Very similar to what we saw over here. I'm kind of looking for something very similar inside of these levels. And then I think there would be like a short-term long inside of that zone. And then pushing up, still getting it right back into this range area, if you will, becoming a point of resistance for us, and then we'll start seeing bigger breakdowns. This entire idea that I have is probably going to take about 2 weeks to develop, starting this week, and then next week we'll actually start to see real momentum in this starting to break down. Speaking of the weekly, let's go over to the weekly real quick. That's monthly, excuse me. So here's where we're at. All right, if you want to look at short term for the week, I mean, we have 4 days left inside of this week, so we have plenty of time to see what's going to happen. From a TD9 sequential perspective, you know, I've been alluding and sharing, you know, these phases can get tested. 1724.35 was the benchmark that it needs to close underneath. We've tapped right onto it and then pulled right back up. So those are signs that it's relatively bullish from a TD9 sequential perspective, but being that we have so much time left inside of the month, a lot can occur here. So this is where we go back over to the 4 hour and I say, okay, well, where can I get some deeper levels, right? If I can get down to 1670, 1637 inside of that area and then pull back into 1724, that's hella bullish. That's hella bullish. So that's going to point towards higher highs at the end of the day. Some of this count that I have most likely will become invalidated. Now the opposite is true. You know, what if it goes to those levels, but that doesn't make a higher high? It comes down to these zones right over here, pulls back above 1724, which looks good going into the next week. We get to somewhere around here, or maybe right over here, where we have some buy side liquidity that sits inside the zone, and then we start breaking down. Then this pattern, at least this wave count, comes to fruition. But I'd rather be positioned accordingly and be wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong, versus, you know, trying to be sidelined, getting to this area and say, okay, well, we're going to come back down, and then it just continues to pump. So as of right now, 1724 was going to be one of the key areas. We can see that we have a nice breakdown as of right now. We're running relatively cool inside this zone. Let's go ahead and open up some of the smart candles, and let's see if we're ranging just yet. All right, so we went straight from bullish trend to bearish trend, but that's not exhausted yet. I think we're going to have a little bit of a range first. What I'm looking for from a candle formation perspective is I want to see something like this, a little bit of a range develop, and then we can start breaking down. See, we were going bearish for a while, had a nice little pump, and it went into essentially what it would be considered a range. And then we can see all of this that occurred over here. So I want to see something very similar to that, but more so over here inside of this area. You know, maybe hold on to this level, get a dip down into these zones, and then pull back into here. Once we get into these levels, into these zones, I'm going to measure this out for a true wave 2. Actually, we can do that here on this stream. We can identify what some of those levels are. We're going to look for the 88 and we're going to look for the 76. Actually, we're going to look for all three. We're going to look for 76, 88, and we're also going to look for a 95. See what those levels measure out to. You know, if we stay within inside of these zones, right where this buy side liquidity area is, and we can't break out of that, then we'll have a true wave 2. And the next move to follow that is going to be pretty aggressive, because it will go into a wave 3. And that wave 3 essentially puts us right back to, you know, prior monthly lows, which was right around 1507, 1503. So it'll put us in the 1507s, 1510s inside of those zones, inside those areas. We can see, we do have a larger wave count. And essentially this 1510 would have broken down into a wave 2. We can come back and revisit that area right before we can actually truly go into a wave 3. We've seen that inside of 2023. Excuse me. Not 2023, excuse me. In 2022, we saw something very similar to that. We went from like sub 1,000, pumped all the way up to 2,000, and then came right back down to those lower 1,000 handles. So we could come back to these levels before we can actually activate a wave 3 altogether. What's up, Sniper? Good morning, brother. Good morning. What's up, boy? What's up, big dog? What's up, Vision? Good morning, good morning, good morning. So some of my shorts are from higher up, and don't get me wrong, man, those shorts were, it makes you want to grit your teeth, kind of, right? But it took some shorts here at the higher levels. I'm actually short from like 1830, but a very small position. I was just testing something, didn't have the opportunity to really manage it the way that I wanted to manage it. But I have an entry of 1832.22. So pretty darn close to the high, if you will. What's up, Whacker? Good morning, brother. I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. So those are some of my thoughts on ETH. I want to go over to USDT real quick so we can kind of get an idea as far as what's going on with USDT. You know, a lot can change for USDT, or at least for ETH, if USDT decides to start pumping to Valhalla. You know, one of those areas that I'm focusing on or keeping my eye on is going to be right over inside this area, this 9.123 zone, right inside here. That's going to be one of the areas that I want to observe and see what USDT decides to do. You know, right now it's holding some uptrend support from this trend line that you can currently see right now. This looks like it's forming what would be a form of a barrier type of triangle, right? Because you have your flat base at the top and then you have your uptrend that's going right over here. So typically the way those would work is you're going to see a breakout to the upside. The breakout to the upside is going to be essentially just from the swing high to the low, right? So from the peak to the valley. And if that were to go, that wouldn't be pretty. I believe that would put us a new all-time high for USDT, and that would be a little concerning because previous all-time highs were 9.4. Yeah, so that would put us at a new all-time high for USDT. I think the only difference, well, there's a lot of differences, but one of the significant differences is, you know, when USDT hit those levels back in 2022, ETH was sub 1K at those levels. So if we go to 10 point something new all-time high for USDT, are you saying that we're going to go to sub 1K? No, not necessarily. I think we'll get back to the 1K levels for sure, like 1,025. That's an area that I'm keeping an eye on. If USDT were to do that, you know, that's a big if. There's a lot for us to digest. There's heavy amount of volume that's inside of this zone for USDT. We can see it here on the fixed volume range tool. We can see it there, and there's very low volume over here. Hasn't been traded yet. So I mean, in a perfect world, if we're going to be bullish on ETH, whatever level that it decides to stop at, whether it be, you know, 1630s and continues to go higher, or it gets back down to the 1507 areas, at the end of the day, what we're looking for USDT is to stay inside of this. And as you get closer towards an apex, which would be the peak of this area, you want to see a breakdown and coming in and testing these areas over here. That's in a perfect world. That's in a perfect world. That's how I'm viewing that. That's what I'm looking for. But as of right now, you know, you have a big push down, and then now you have what looks to appear to be like a scallop. The issue is that the scallop is here at the top, and you really want to see scallops here when you get to the bottom like that. That's really where you want to see them placed. Yeah. So for USDT, you know, if I'm going to be setting any type of alarms, or if I'm going to be looking at any particular key levels, for me, again, it's going to be this 9.123 zone. I'll move this over. And we'll do that right now. We'll set an alarm here at 9.123. I have 9.127, so I'm seeing difference, splitting hairs there. And then we're going to set one here at 9.4. Just shy, just underneath it. And continue anyways, it's fine. And we'll set one here just in case it decides to come here, because I believe I actually have a wave 5 that sits at 10.5. Right, so this is just a measured move. So as a matter of fact, what I'll just do here is I'll just set an alarm at that level if it were to go to that level. So the reason being for these alarms is as USDT hits these levels, then I'm going to be looking at ETH and saying, okay, are you going to start pausing or breaking in these areas where I can start entering into longs? And you could do the same thing for BTC. I'm just a little bit more familiar with ETH in regards to how it behaves, and I trade it a lot more. But we will look at BTC here now. It's a little messy, a little messy. Yeah, so all the levels got pretty much exhausted. Let's take some of this noise off. Yeah, let's just do this. Where do you come from? I think you stem from daily. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, you stem from daily. So let's go to a 4-hour. And let's just put this all together and get rid of it. Okay, so we'll just leave that clean. So from a 4-hour perspective, you know, we did have a new low right inside this area, and now we have an up thrust. So what does that tell you? Right? I want you to expand upon that. Like, what does that tell you as a trader? Or at least if you're utilizing wave counts, things like that. I'll wait. I'll let you guys answer. The question is, we hit a low, a new low. We have an up thrust. What's going to follow after that? And there's two ways that you could really answer that. Some of these questions I'm going to be asking are going to be granting you guys access to VIP, especially if you don't have VIP. We'll even throw in some indicators in there as well too, to help some of you guys out. But this is where I really want to start testing your guys' knowledge. Yes, reversal, but in which direction? Yeah, correction. Yeah, Whacker, you are correct. We have a correction. Yes, we do have a correction. So here's what I'm getting at. This move right here, whenever you have that down thrust and you have that initial up thrust becomes a wave. Right? In this particular case, just viewing this how it is right now on a 4-hour, we can view that and constitute that as a wave 1. we can utilize that as a wave 1. So, you know, to what you're saying, Whacker, yes, there would be a correction, and there's 2 ways that we're looking at that. We're going to be looking at the ABC. You know, where does the ABC take us? And man, you could really do it 2 different ways, to be honest with you. You can go here, here, and then you get your C. You could even go here, here, because wave B can go higher than the origins, and then you're inside of C. So we'll really know what that looks like, you know, what kind of ABC we're going to be in based on the amount of momentum that it pushes down to the downside. But nevertheless, you can actually do this and say, okay, well, regardless if it goes where the ABC is going to be, we can take from the origins from that swing low to this swing high. Make sure your fibs are correct. In this particular case, they are not. So it's just a simple click, just hit the reverse. All right, and let's remove, you know, 0.3 to 0.5. We'll leave 618.764.88, and we'll actually even add on a 0.95, just so we have for good measure. All right, so this becomes valid. So as long as price action can maintain this area over here, it becomes invalid when we sweep this zone right here. So that becomes an invalid area. So what areas would we be sweeping? Well, I want to sweep that. I want to get into this gap right over here. So the way that I would structure this is I'm really going to be targeting inside of this zone right over here. I want to get to the 88. You know, once I get to that 88, then I'll start observing, and even so much so it's even getting back to this 95. So essentially this becomes your 1, this becomes your 2, and then you're going to see your 3. You know, 3 is going to be the most impulsive. We can actually measure that out, but that's really what you're going to be looking for. And when we're utilizing USDT, you know, if USDT kind of hangs back around these areas that I mentioned inside of these zones and just continues to stay compressed, gets inside this, stays inside of here, then, you know, the long for BTC or the long for ETH, it's not a bad move. It's not a gamble, if you will, per se, because you're looking for USDT to continue to stay compressed and continue to stay compressed until it has a drop. And then once that drop occurs like that, then you're going to go into your wave 3. I mean, technically we could still be inside of a wave 3 right now for ETH. We're just retracing back down and revisiting those wave 2. So that might seem misleading. You know, you could look at it saying, okay, we are inside of a wave 3. Maybe we don't sweep 1507 area. Maybe we come down to like 1510 or maybe 1507. So we're double bottom. So we would still be inside that wave 3, but also still inside of that wave 2. I know that sounds really confusing. But as long as we maintain those areas, we're still waiting for wave 3 to develop. That's why I say that we're technically inside of that per se. So going back to BTC, you know, I'm going to set some alarms here at the 88. Did I do that correctly? I feel like I didn't do that correctly. Yeah, I definitely didn't do that correctly. I did that at 618. I wanted to go to 88. Yeah. You know, the 618, it's rare cases that you'll actually bounce there. I leave it there in the event that we have some type of move that's inside that zone. But just looking at the 618 level and just right underneath it, I would anticipate some type of turbulence, you know, maybe getting to this area and then kind of maybe move sideways, people trying to long and then flushing into the zone, then pulling right back up and then kind of holding it before it has its next move. That's one way that I'd be looking at that. The reason being is that I don't think it'll hold is because of this thin liquidity that sits inside the zone. And then if we look at this gap that sits inside here, you know, it makes sense for price to come into the zone, fill some of this, and then move higher. Correction out to 0.5 around 1768. So you're talking about ETH here. So somebody was mentioning they were expecting a correction up to 0.5 fib around 1768. I'm not sure how you're measuring that. I'm gonna assume you're measuring from here to here. I think that's what you're doing. And I could be wrong, but I'll look at it. Let's see if I can get a move here. I think that's what you're measuring. So 1778, I think that's what you're measuring. Yeah, that move was over here though. I keep doing that. Yeah, because we went straight to a 141 area. Actually, I already have it measured out. It's right over here. I measured these two swings right here. That initial peak and that initial drop right over there. I measured it out. We went to a 1.414 level, which was right around 1831.28, and I think our high was 1832.99. So I'm looking at all this as A and then B, and then we're gonna go into a C right over here. I don't think we're gonna come back into this area. You might see that, but then this is where the 15-minute comes into play. I think we're past, yeah, we just passed 9:45, okay. So where did we end? Okay, so that's our range. There's no liquidity there, so I can see why that's occurring. So if anything, we're gonna come back and try to revisit this area. You had 1758, I think it was 1768. What's 1768? Yeah, you do get some buy side liquidity that sits over there. Yeah, we could see that. New York take us to here and then back down again. So it's tricky to start building shorts when you start seeing price like this, right? When you already have a cool down inside these zones. Your best bet, in my opinion, is utilizing a 4-hour here and waiting for those next 4-hour sessions. So if this is my 15-minute New York high, this is my 15-minute New York low. Obviously I want to see that I'm rejecting this area right over here to some degree. Maybe I get a little bit higher inside this area, but if I can get a wick that goes into something like right around here and then break down like that, then this would be essentially where my short level entry would be. And that's really what I'm looking for when I'm trading the sessions, right? Because if I'm sitting here going, well, I'm going to wait until I get back here. I'm going to wait until I get back over here. That's when I'm going to trigger my shorts. That's when I'm going to trigger my shorts. I missed it. You might miss it altogether. So this is why we have to utilize the sessions, because the session is really going to tell us the direction that's going to go in. From a 15-minute perspective, we're on that second session on a 15-minute. We're fighting right now that 1735 level right now. We're fighting that level. So I would be a little bit more cautious and wait for the next 4-hour session to see what occurs at 1743 inside those zones, right? Maybe I get a small little wick right above it into 1750, and then I start coming right back down. I'd look to start building my shorts inside that zone. All right, and you don't even have to look at patterns or anything like that. Like, you don't need to utilize patterns the way that I use patterns. You can just look at just straight price action. Let's go over to, where are you located? Yeah. See, all this could be a wave 2, right? 1, and then there's your 2, right? All right, well, 2's done, then we should be in 3, right? Well, yeah, technically we should. But I think we revisit this area. We fill in this gap right over here, right? Because I think someone had pointed out inside the chat, like, signs of weakness, right? So once you start seeing that chop inside that area, and a good tool for you to use is identify where the intent is, not the wicks. You're looking at the bodies. What area are the bodies kind of just all lining up? Right there. And then when we look left of our initial drop, right, that got us to 1503. What happened on that first 4 hour? We tried to test that area. Came down, pushed up, had a nice thrust through it, but then immediately had a throwdown. And you can start to see where the intent was. This was a short squeeze. That's where you get that wick. People with high leverage, running very tight stop losses, getting pushed out. Look at that. Now we're seeing something very similar. This entire setup right over here, we're seeing something very similar. So, you know, as this was moving down and moved down, look what this did right over here. Right, you had a wick that came up. So looking for, even if it came up to here, right? Like, even if it came up to like 1789, because 1789 is going to be, or 1798, 1789, those are going to be like the intense levels. And if you're shorting this, you know, you gotta have a good dosage of patience here. Good doses of patience here. And vice versa on any position, you know, whether you're long or you're short, your patience should be heavily observed. But first key level for me is going to be 1670. That's going to be the bat pattern. We blew right past it. We didn't even test it, not once, not even once. We just went straight up. And then I believe we have another one that sits right here. Yeah, that's the total pattern. So going back into it, that's what I was saying. I was like, I believe that we'll probably revisit this area, and then we have to make some real decisions inside that zone. I'm 100% going to be looking for longs inside that zone. 100% going to be looking for longs inside that area. Notice I said look for the long. Doesn't mean that I have limits that are set. I'm going to observe first. That's going to be my plan of attack. Give me a second. I got to grab a charger real quick. Hang on, guys. I'll answer your questions here in a sec. All right, I'm back. First, 15 and 5 minute messing around with it. Okay, yeah, I respect it. And so now we're testing. That's a very small range. This is a small range. Me personally, I don't like small ranges. It's not a big preference for me. It doesn't mean it's untradeable. Just it makes it so easy for either side to be taken out. So it's a little bit of a gamble if you're shorting from the zone. I don't think you're wrong per se, but you better be prepared to come back and revisit these areas, and even possibly revisit this area. I want to check on Clo real quick, because Clo has been an absolute beast, if I can actually find it. Excuse me. Damn, you went straight to the 23? You did, didn't you? Well, pretty close to it. So 4, and then I'll probably get 5 over here. I gotta see where I can get a 4 at. 1, 2, and then 3. I don't think I have a 4 on there. Let's just throw a 4 on there real quick. Where's my low? Which one? You're my low? You're my low. Let's see if we can hold that. I guess this is short term. One, two. Yeah, let's set an alarm here. Let's set an alarm right there. I set an alarm for Clo right around 17,102. My long was from these levels right over here. But I've already TP'd a good chunk of it thus so far. Subwave. So maybe. Oh man, never mind. That actually might be a very large one. Yeah, that could be a very large one. But I don't have a 5 yet. Yeah, I'm still gonna look for a long opportunity that sits here. The idea for me is to get somewhere inside this zone and then get an up thrust. Just mainly because this is how Clo behaves, right? We can see that Clo has pretty intense moves to either side, and then you see the sideways movement, and then you see the up thrust, comes back down, sideways movement, up thrust, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So that's kind of what we saw here. We had the down thrust. We have a little bit of a larger sideways movement inside this. So that's why I'm anticipating it kind of comes down to this area, maybe moves sideways again, then moves up, comes down again, moves sideways, goes up again. So the alarms are set for that zone right over there. That's what I'm looking at for Clo. Clo's been a fast mover. It's been beneficial. Let's look at Sol. Sol very similar to ETH. It's a little bit cleaner. Yeah, that's really. I already have the alarm set. That hasn't changed for me. I'm not shorting Sol from these levels. If you caught it, you caught it. But I'd be I'm more inclined to look for the long when we get into like the 65 down to 62 levels. As a matter of fact, we're going to set another alarm here at this 65 just so we can start putting it on our radar. So once it starts tapping into that level, then I'll be like, all right, this is what I need to be paying attention to. Orca was fun. Orca was fun for a little bit. Still want to see this level get tapped into. We took some longs inside VIP, but I already closed it because I don't have that much faith in it. BCH, that's one that's been looking good. Oh, very similar to ETH. Very, very similar to ETH. All right, cool. So you literally tapped into wave A areas. Okay. So BCH, I'm going to move this up. I'm going to take it to the sell side liquidity area. It's not far off. That's 186. So like around 190, I'll start getting a notification for it. But we took all the buy side liquidity inside this area. And so now I want to target here. That's what I'm targeting for liquidity. Well, you see completing around 1700, but expecting much lower overall, waiting on new wave 1 and add when I see wave 2 pullback. Yep, I like it. I like your chart, brother. I think I commented on yesterday. Your chart was super clean, super clean. So any of you guys that are, you know, maybe new to our server or just new to the streams, inside of our server, we have a whole bunch of journals of other traders that are, you know, trading their thoughts, their thesis, their progress, whatever coin that they're charting. Sniper's been charting for a while now. I'd say about 4.5 years now. I could be wrong on that. But you can see his progression, and he has a really nice clean chart inside his journal. Kimberly's another one. She has one for a couple different alts. She has one that's for Doge that I saw yesterday, reviewed yesterday, and I wouldn't change a thing about that one either. So it's more just Confluence versus, you know, copy and paste, but it's out there. It's there for you guys. Oh, Velvet. Damn, that would have been a juicy short. That would have been a very juicy short. I can't even get anything out of that. Oh, excuse me, pardon me. I can't even get anything out of that. I mean, you just got to do like something basic like a freaking trend line. But I still think this gets filled, man. I believe I posted inside the channel, VIP channel, just the other day. I was looking at these levels right over here, right up in here. Like, you see how thin that liquidity is? Like this has a wick, this has a wick, these have some wicks. Like, these are super thin, very, very thin inside this area. So I just, me personally, just how violent it moves on both directions, to the upside and to the downside. I mean, bro, this was, look at that. This is in a span of 8 hours. Let's just go 8 hours. The 68% drop in the span of 8 hours. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I would just wait. If it never goes there, it never goes there. But that's just where I would wait. That's where I would say it makes sense to me. Okay, because we do something like that. All right, this was previous resistance. All right, we can even go a step further. All right, remember when we're talking about the intent? All right, go a little bit step further, even further out. All right, did we ever come back and retest that? Nope. So that puts you at what, 1330? 1330, somewhere in that, inside that zone. If I was going to touch Velvet, you know, I set an alarm for it. Once we get back to that zone, then I'll take a look. I know you guys have been trading wild. I have not traded wild. Almost there. Almost there. Do I have an alarm set for you? I don't have an alarm set for you. I'll set one here. Hasn't changed. Let's go to 88. So I have an alarm at 2853, 0.2853 for wild. And then it would be a point of observation for me because I can get down to this 95, which is 0.25. So most likely what you'd really want to see is, or at least what I would want to see is, you know, start seeing some stalling out here, maybe a little push up, and then you get that sweep and takes them out and gets into this area with a small little push down to the zone, maybe into this area, and then pulling back up and closing above here. That's what I would be looking for. I should have shorted grass and I didn't. I did not. And that's tricky. I'm not getting a real good clean count. I wanted to get to this zone right over here. 66 inside that area. 66.30 up to like 70 maybe. And then get my retracement down to here, but I think we'll take, right, because you got that uptrend going on right now, so I think they're gonna flush that. I mean, we do have a cooldown. I could be wrong about that. We do have a cooldown, but I don't trust it. Let's look at something real quick. That hasn't peaked out yet. Get some buy signals. Actually, I'm wrong. That it did start to peak out. Damn, that's just a weak wave 2 though, man. I think this just makes a little bit more sense for me, coming down to here. Yeah, I'll set an alarm for that. 2298.2298. I was just looking at Sui the other day. Zama. I think I had a short getting ready for you. Oh. ARM. ARM never came to my entry, so it's just going to continue to wait on that. And then I was looking at FET. What was I looking at on FET? Oh, look, you touch entry. Look at you, Pikachu. Oh, you sure did. Yeah, that actually might be a good opportunity to start taking it. Okay. Okay. Wick to body. Is that what you're doing? Retesting? Ooh. All right. I don't think I have an alarm set on it, but we're going to set an alarm on that right now. And just for kicks and giggles, because I do have the sell side liquidity that sits right inside the zone for FET, I'm going to go here. So my setup would probably look like this. Oh yeah, that's the FET. It's already going off. Okay. Yeah, I think we might get into this one now. So I'm running it tight because the red line that you see on the bottom is the weekly low. That's the weekly low. So if I make a new weekly low from a weekly perspective, I'm inside of what we would call a price discovery for that week, right? Not overall price action, not all-time lows or all-time highs. I'm simply talking about for that week, because during that week, we've reached new lows or we reached new highs. So we really have to make an assessment as far as what's going to occur at those levels. So this is why I would have a tighter stop loss just underneath that weekly low, which is the red line there. Let me see if I can get into that right now, actually. FET. There you are. Yeah, I'm gonna do a small little bit on that. What the heck is going on? Oh, there it is. I'm like, what is going on? I just triggered a small position here for FET, running 20x lev on that. Nothing crazy. And I just ran along on that. and setting my stop just below, a couple pips underneath the low. You know, I'll wait on B. Let's take a look at River. That's one thing I haven't looked at. Yeah, River's not at the levels that I'm looking at, that I want to see. Yeah, the challenge is still active. Oh, that's what's up. Is that my short? That's what's up. That's what's up. I didn't get in it myself. I didn't, but I'm glad the levels are working out. That's good. I appreciate the trust on that. Thank you. Yeah, we restarted the challenge this week. You know, participation is obviously going to be one of the main components for the challenge, you know, so for those that are here, appreciate it. You guys are always going to get the updates, the live plays, things of that nature. You know, sometimes people are going to miss it. I get it. They'll have to watch a playback to see how that develops, what that looks like. But we're restarting. I think we reached like 9,200 in the last 2.5, 3 weeks while we're running the challenge. This was the challenge that began in June, and then essentially just finishing here in the first week, 2 weeks of July. So we ran to 9,200. I asked everybody, if you want me to restart it, I'll restart it. Majority of people asked for it to be restarted, so that's why I'm restarting it. Now, if there's any coins you guys want to look at together, feel free, drop it inside the chat. I'll pull them up, see what I can come up with as far as assessment wise. Currently, we're just short on ETH, and I triggered a long on FET. I'm gonna move FET up because I'm actually trading it. I'll move it to here. Yeah, we're trying to break that weekly low. It's at 1725. It's this level right over here. We break this goes into a new count. This would essentially would have been the 8, but I believe we're going to restart it, which is that can be kind of scary. That can definitely be kind of scary, because if that count restarts, with a new one, we are going to float around this area for a little while. We're going to float in this area for a little while. We may get a push down, and then we're going to come back. We're going to float around this area for a while. I mean, the opportunities to long, I think, are going to be, again, are going to come from these levels right over here. Actually, let's look at that candle. That's a bullish engulfing. 71% of the time it has, it acts as a reversal. So let's measure that out because we're on a confirmation candle right now. And when you look at that, 50% of that candle puts us right around 1677. If we remember, well, we have wave B right over here. 1670 inside that zone. So let's add a 618 to that. Let's just see what that looks like. And what does a 7.6 look like? So maybe a rising 3. That's possible. We get a bullish engulfing into a rising 3. I could see that. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's see what that looks like. One, two. And that's a continuation pattern. So all of this would act as a trap. That's going to look inappropriate, but you guys will get the idea. All that would act as a trap. Yeah, I really like those. That's 1630. I know I have 1670. I had mentioned that, but if I retrace a little bit harder down to like 1630s inside those areas, you know, if we can maintain this zone, if we can maintain that, we can get a push into this. And then we'll probably see the exact same thing over and over again. Because usually when you have rising 3s, you'll see at least 2 of them. It'll look like that. Yeah, I could also do that too, saying. Gosh, I hope not. I'll make an infograph for you guys a little bit later. Yeah, that's what we're going to look for. Man, you even go a step further, man. Because you could also look at it too, because this entire move was a vertical run up. Retrace, 76% of it inside that area. That put me in the same spot. I think for the Rising 3, I was looking at 1899. If I look at it from a flag perspective, it puts me at 1905 inside that area. Yeah, so let's set some alarms around here. And let's set some alarms around here. What's 1609? That puts me here. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to say holding on to the psychological level of 1600s. And what was that? 1890 something? That's your short-term bullish point of view. That's what I'd be looking at. Right, because we have to remember, like, the month of July is going to be the confirmation month. Remember, this is kind of what we were alluding to right over here. We're on a 9 impulse candle as of right now. This 9 candle can completely just flush down to the downside. So it is a very sensitive month from a data perspective. As far as, did we bottom out inside the month of June? You need July to start confirming that. Now, again, well, I'll reiterate, I've mentioned this before, July can come down and flush 1503. The point to all this is that we are coming very, very, very close to the end of our bear market. July is going to start confirming that. So we need July to finish wherever July is going to finish at. With 23 days and 10 hours left inside of it, it'd be crazy to say, okay, well, we're not going to go back down to 1507 inside those areas. So even the levels that I just pointed out, saying that what I'm going to be looking for long, yeah, they can be risky inside the month of July. I could very well get a long here, get up to 1898, 1900, and then we retrace all the way back down inside the month of July. That very well could happen. But I don't want to be short in a position, get round tripped, then see price going higher when I could have got into a long at these lower levels. So that's the way that I think that's how I'm going to be handling it. Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta step away for a second. I'll be here. Sorry about that, gang. I'm back though. And if any of you guys are curious as to where I'm taking these trades, Bitunix and Blofin, the links are inside of the description. Blofin is offering a 20% cashback reward on any deposit that you do, so you get 20% of whatever deposit you put in as cash back. Usually takes about 72 hours. Yeah, 72 hours for it to go live. And it's just so that way people don't gamify the system. And then Bitunix is offering VIP2 status, which gives you a discount on trading fees. And they'll also be giving you guys bonuses every single week based on how much volume you were doing. So all the details as far as the campaigns are inside of our server. You'll find them under the respective channels. So you'll find Blofin, you'll find Bitunix, you'll see the campaigns that are there. But that's where we're trading. And if you so happen to trade with us, then you have access to VIP inside of our channel, which has a little bit more detailed information as far as setups and things of that nature, a little bit more intimate, for lack of better terminology, in the sense of what we're doing and how we're treating each play. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. I'm just reading some of you guys' comments in regards to some of the stream feedbacks. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you. Yeah, main purpose for me on these is to help educate. When I first got into just trading altogether, at first I wasn't trading crypto, but more so what's more relatable, when I actually got into trading crypto, like I didn't have anybody teaching me. I had to learn the long way and the hard way, which I'm forever grateful for those experiences and those trials, tribulations, things like that. I'm grateful for those, because it formed who you see in front of you today. But I always thought to myself, I was like, yo, there should be like somebody that just teaches this because they want to teach it, right? Not for any other reason outside of that. And so a lot of these streams are kind of correlated with that. It's with teaching you guys in mind. Sometimes it's a lot of waiting. It is. You got a little bit of more FaceTime with me. This is where the questions will come in saying, this is something I was looking at. What do you know of it? Or I was looking at your chart. Can you explain that a little bit more? Whatever the case may be. I certainly didn't have that. And I personally don't believe in hoarding information. I just don't. I'm flipping over to the weekly now because you can see, right? Now you can see the 1 is starting to appear here. See how I flip back now to the 2? Because this is going to be where the real dogfights start to begin. There's a real dogfight going on there. I don't like the long there because the risk reward for me doesn't. Even if I'm completely wrong and this thing just pumped to the moon, for lack of better terminology, when I see something like that, I don't like the risk reward because of where all this turbulence sits inside this area. Now, mind you, if I'm scalping, then yeah, that's different. But I'm more of setting myself up for intradays and swings right now. That's essentially how I'm positioning myself. You know, the scalps would have been over the course of this week, you know, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, which just felt like straight up brain rot. Right, because I think all of us enter into a scalp, and then all of a sudden that scalp turns into an intraday, or that scalp turns into a swing, right? Right? You started scalping here in this area, and then you saw this push down, and you're like, oh, well, it's a good position. I'm heading right back down. And then all of a sudden it just takes you out and you come into this area. And vice versa, if you're longing from these zones and you see that push up and you just swing high, you're like, oh, we're going higher. And then it just comes right back to this area. So this area just becomes like I wouldn't necessarily say a dangerous area, but you got to be fast. You got to be in and out, in and out, in and out. And I'd like to say like the vast majority, I'd say like 25% of traders can actually handle that. You know, the majority are going to sit there and hold on to it for too long, or they're going to have a lot of break evens or a lot of tight stop losses that get hit. So rather than trying to fight it, it's more of just waiting for the move to come to you and then going from there. For us, it's going to be, you know, essentially waiting for this level right over here. Why does this keep turning black? I'm actually, and you know what? We should actually really focus on that right there. Okay, once we start entering into this area right over here, 1670, we start observing and seeing like, all right, what's going on? What I'm looking for here at this point is I'm looking for cooldowns, right? And I'll actually throw on the sequential count for us just so that way we have it, so we can see it visually. Nice 13 that printed right over here. Was there a 9? There was a 9. The 8 was actually higher than the 7 and the 6. So it like barely qualified, but it still qualified nevertheless. So all this additional over here was just residue to get to that 13. Now we're printing a 5. So here's one way of looking at it that you can assist yourself if you're not in a position right now. Let's take off these brush marks real quick. So from a candle analysis perspective, let's go 5 back, or 4 back, excuse me. How much time we have left in this? We have about an hour, so let's give it the next one. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. So that puts me here. If it were to be this candle, it would be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So I'm probably going to be hanging around this area for a little while. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the following one would be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. How do I get the 4 here? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So that's over the course of the next 8 hours. Which is basically the day. We have 9 hours left in the day, so it's basically the day. If someone's bullish, this is the area that needs to be flipped. So let's say that you're short from, let's say that you opened up a short here this morning on New York open high. Your chances of revisiting your entry level are greater than 50%. So my recommendation in this particular area for me would be saying, okay, well, I'm going to take some profits here at this level because I'm in profits. I'm testing a sequential count on the weekly, which is 1724. So it's trying to flip it. There's 9 hours left inside of the day. I have 2 more 4-hour sessions essentially that I need to build up. In that course of the next 8 to 9 hours, can I revisit my area? Yes. Yes. And that puts you right around like 1759 inside that area. 1750, 1759 inside that zone. So while you'll have a strong move to the downside, that's kind of what I was saying before earlier. Like most people struggle with scalps and intradays and things like that. They get into a position and they're like, oh man, it's moving. And they forget to take profits. Right? We got to remember, like, profit doesn't become real until you actually close it. And I know that's like common sense to most people, but we have to remind ourselves of that on a regular basis. So while you're sitting in profits, like just close out some. Take a little here, take a little there. You're going to come back to the 1759 area. Maybe you shorted New York open high, which is 1743. So if you're going to come back to 1759, you're not only going to get round trips, you're going to be in the red. So how you treat that is you just come down to like a 15-minute. All right, got some bullish candles that are establishing here inside this area. Okay, come down to a 3-minute. What's going on a 3-minute? All right, over the next hour, maybe, we come to here, maybe it comes down, and then the next 4 hour we come over here, kind of floats here again, and then you see a push into this. $100% possible. 100% possible. Because this is still a lower high. I mean, it's not even a high in that matter. It's just a retest. As a matter of fact, I think you can actually pull up the change of character on here. No, I haven't had a change of character just yet. Yeah, so volatility would kick in there. Let's look at one thing we have not looked at today. It was DMI. That just screams volatility. Not in a true buy zone just yet. Sell went higher. So you got nothing but bearish divergence that sits right over here. Price went a little bit higher, but RSI wasn't going higher at all. It was going lower. Now I'd want to see my cipher inside of this area right over here. That would be ideal. Mind you, it's only a 4 hour. In this right over here, I'm probably going to be moving sideways for a little bit. I'm probably going to be seeing this from the DI positive and DI negative. probably going to see that for a little while. So shorts right over here at the top, they're going to feel a little bit of pressure. Oh no, fat, it's coming down a little bit. Yeah, that might be a good ad for me there. Yeah, had a small little ad on fat. I'm building inside of FET to see if I can maintain the weekly low. If I lose the weekly low, then I get pushed into my stop. I'm not worried about that. So FET, I'm just building inside of this zone. Actually, I'll pull up FET over here just so we have it for reference. We can just keep flipping back through it. Whoops. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, because I'm constituting all of this move to the downside. I'm viewing that as a 2. All right, origins, peak top right here. So looking at all this as 1, and then all this coming down to being a 2. Well, not that low, but you get the idea. So testing that 88. Can even come down to a 95 inside that area. So I would just treat it level to level. As of right now, I'm at the 88. Stops are just below the weekly low inside that area. In the event that I come down lower. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and put a 95 on there. I'm going to minimize this for right now because it's in the way. And it's you that I'm looking for. Yep. So I'd be looking for a new entry right around here. If this 88 doesn't hold out and pan out, I'm looking for 95 in that area. You could do the opposite. You could DCA, start DCAing from here, and then, DCAing from these levels. Maybe you have low leverage, maybe using a lower margin, and you have enough capital to start building into it. Everyone's going to be a little bit different in that regard. What I'm doing, I'm just going to run the tighter stop loss and then just look for the re-entry inside these zones. And just as an FYI, the site was updated for you guys first thing this morning. So you guys have the positions, kind of what I'm looking at. But just in short, like if we get a 15-minute close underneath this level, underneath 1724, then yeah, bears are going to pick up momentum, which you're going to see this DI negative kind of coil up. And if that starts to coil up with the ADX following right behind it, then yeah, it's going to come straight to these levels. Straight to those levels. So just as an FYI, it's right over here. It's a full breakdown right here. And just as an FYI, just adding more to it. Yeah, see, looking at a chart, there's a change of character that I saw that was going to start brewing. We're getting that change of character, which we're going to get a pullback. We're going to get that pullback into that zone. But I'll digress. Some of you guys asked, like, where do I find these additional coins, things of that nature? You'll find them all on our site. You can actually just go straight over here, and there's an entire scanner page. that's just dedicated to them. These are going to show certain grade levels versus what you'll see inside of VIP. In VIP, you'll see all the breakdowns, you know, all the different grade levels that are on there on the site. It kind of filters them out a little bit more, so you'll see a little bit less but higher grades that are on there. And then there's going to be like breakdowns for them, you know. So AVE, we can come into AVE. Right, you have a short, kind of give you some of the reasoning for it. You can open the full report inside there. You see the reasons why it triggered. So you're not just enter it blindly. And so you'll have some ideas and reasoning to go into it. You can copy the trade. You just copy it and then, you know, paste it if you wanted to paste it or something like that. You can come right over to the terminal and do the same thing if you actually just want to utilize one of the charts. Right, so here's the setup, and then it'll open up that chart for you. If it's too much, if you need more screen space, you'll see something like that. You get a little more screen space that's in there. %86 are short right now. Well, that's not the best, but fear is at 20. And then lastly, you guys know there's education that's here. I'm going to be expanding upon this going into the remainder of the week, but there's a couple little quick lessons here for you guys, whether it be you know something that's simple and easy per se, support and resistance, something that gets a little bit more intricate, volume dynamics. I'd say a good handful, you know, you get 10 traders, you probably have maybe about 3 of them that truly understand volume dynamics. When it comes to volume and price action, those are your real-time indicators, right? They're not lagging. So you can get a real, you know, pulse of where the market's at if you start to understand how to read volume along with price action such as candles. Harmonics, this is something for reversal patterns. You guys see me use it quite often. Risk management there for you guys. And then a couple different trading strategies that you guys can utilize. And then obviously the emotional aspect of it. The DMI, which you saw me just talking about just earlier, directional moving index. So there's a breakdown that's in there for you. So it's not a flex, just sharing with you guys that the site is built to assist you and help grow you as a trader, whether you're trying to learn something new or you're looking for different coins that are out there that are outside of BTC and outside of ETH or outside of Sol. You're looking for something that's a little bit of a fast mover. The scanner that we've designed mainly follows a smart money concept, and it's going to be focusing on 4 hour, 1 hour, 15 minute, and 5 minute. The grade levels are going to be contingent on the alignments that they have. So if the 4 hour has a change of character, and then the 1 hour has a break of structure, you're going to start to see alignment, and then that filters down to the 15 minute and 5 minute. Do we have the same type of structure? Do we have a break of structure to the downside or to the upside, whichever way that trend is going, wherever that call is going to be going? You're going to see if there's an alignment there. That's going to be the first part. The second part is going to be, is there a liquidity event that has occurred? If there's no liquidity event that has occurred, then the grading of it starts to diminish. It doesn't mean that the setup can't be there. It just means that one of those events that actually give that scan a higher grade is having a liquidity event. Coupled with that, it's also going to be reading volume. How much volume has entered into the market based on that move? So if you had a massive spike up to the upside but low volume and it's calling for a short, then essentially that's going to be your liquidity event, and you're going to have the low volume that doesn't match that spike up to the upside, so shorts are going to be warranted. And then the opposite is true if you're looking, you know, for a long in that sense. So it does all the heavy lifting for you, right? It reads all these different dynamics, all these different types of strategies that are out there, at least the ones that we utilize, and puts them right there in front of you. So you can open up a chart and say, okay, well, this is what it's calling for. Does this make sense for me to start entering into here? In some cases, I've missed those opportunities, and then I just wait for it to hit a TP, and then I do the opposite. Once it hits that TP, let's say that it was a long call and hits a TP, then I start looking for the shorts. So sometimes you can miss it, but you can still utilize the tool in that way. So that's couple different ways that I've utilized it, and it's just another way for you guys to expand upon the tools that you're using for trading. Yeah, so we got this change of character right over here on that, and that's on a 4-hour too. All right, smart money concepts. It's real time type of data that comes in because it's going to be based off of price action. 9 times out of 10, when you see a change of character, you're going to see a pullback into a specific area. Well, what area can we possibly come back and revisit? It depends on where this change of character decides to end, but if it decides to pull back up, right, first we would need to close underneath here. Not the wick, we need the body. We need the body to close underneath that level, right? You don't get a true change of character unless you get that wick that's under, that body that's underneath. So you may see something that comes down to here, completely front running this area, and then you get a push up to this level. So we would be testing that area from a TD9 sequential. If this goes deeper on the initial push down, the retest would be right over here where the change of character began. Okay, so those are your options. So a retest, depending on where this goes, would be retesting this level or retesting that level. And then you can try to find some type of symmetry that's in that, right? You can see that you're currently inside of a downtrend. I need to change that to white because it keeps doing that. Right, if you want to bring it down a little bit sharper, I usually go from wick to body. That's the appropriate way of doing that. So wick to body. So seeing a move back up, getting into this, maybe a wick, and then back down again. That looks like it wants a little bit more. Actually, let's look at that weekly real quick. What did I say? What is that? 1750s, right? 17, okay, 1760-ish, whatever. Okay. Okay. Then there's the one, right? Because this initially was an 8, but it reclaimed. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4. It reclaimed this level, which was 1694. If you guys recall from last week, you know, this was an important area that we had to monitor. Clearly, it reclaimed that area, closed above it, no problems, no issues. So this was an 8, but considering that it changed the setup phase, now you're inside of a 1. That could be a little scary because if I'm going to get 9 to the downside, eesh. I'm just alluding to what the probability. I'm not saying that that is what's going to happen. I'm just pointing out that that could very well happen. You know, you can get, you know, 2, 3 right here, a 3 right over here, and then what would be 4 just booms up, and then it gives you that rising 3, and then it changes the setup phase all over again. So heavy volatility, and that kind of points towards this on the 4-hour. That's why I was showing you this right over here. There's heavy volatility starting to develop and coming to the market right now. So just wait. Just wait. That looks like it's gonna push me out. Not there yet. But I'm real close. I'm real close. I'm gonna take some profits off of my ETH short. As a matter of fact, I think I'm probably gonna start closing a good chunk of it because on that pullback, I want to add back to that pullback. So I want to have the profits to add back to my pullback. I really don't care about having, you know, a Pico top entry. I have an 1832 entry. Yeah, I could just sit in it and let it breathe and not touch it. But the way that I'm strategically doing this is I'd rather take the profits and then add back to it. Use that profit and add back. My average is already slightly higher, so whatever my add back is going to be higher than whatever I add back at. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Nine PM? No, I'm not in PM yet. So PM hasn't kicked in yet. I need PM to kick in. I'm all fat. I'm banking on this curving. That's what I'm banking on. And I actually have, I don't have a green dot that's printing yet because this is a lagging indicator. So the green dot will come after the move. But I'm getting into that zone, into that oversold zone. That's on a 4-hour. I want to see this start to curve. Once that starts to curve, then I can get a small little bounce in there. And all I'm doing, when you hear the bells going off, I'm taking some profits off of my ETH short. Because I'm at that respective level of, 17, 20 something. So I think there can be an add back for me. but I'm looking for the add backs in these areas. And now I'm seeing if I can rotate into FET. Use FET as a vehicle to get me a little bit of profits in there, and then I'd rotate that right back into ETH. What's USDT doing? Yep, USDT's getting aggressive. There's a question, Sniper. What do you got? Question: C correction wave would not be the wave one of new wave. Not sure if I'm making if I'm asking this right. Do we know when a wave one starts? Yeah, you can measure it that way. So like if you're measuring an ABC to the upside, so after you have your down thrust, let's say like you're inside of like a wave five completed, then you're probably going to see, you know, an A, a B. The B might be a little bit shorter because it doesn't go to a full 88, so it just goes to maybe something short like this. Then I'd look at that as a B, and then there would be my C. Then all of this becomes my wave one, and then I'll get my wave two that comes down to here. Yeah, so that was good TP area for me on ETH. Didn't long. I did not long it. I'm not longing in those areas. I'm primarily looking for the shorts. They want to add and build on the shorts for ETH. So we got a nice change of character that's going on. Next candle to open, which opens here in the next 40 minutes or so. Maybe I get a small little test here. Right? Maybe even a push into here. And then we go gangbusters. It's a smaller position on FET, just as an FYI. It's a $50 margin with 20x leverage. So nothing crazy. What I'll do if I start holding this area, then I start looking into increasing my leverage on the position. But right now I need breathing room. And then I already have my ETH long, my ETH short that's actually acting as a hedge right now because I've taken profits off of that. So slowly rotating into FET so I can get a nice little push, and then wherever I can scalp that out at, then I'm going to go ahead and rotate that back into ETH. That's my plan. So these alts, whether it be Beat, Zama, Orca, Clo, any one of those, you know, these are going to be like short term because they move so fast. So I don't plan on holding on to them for, you know, days on end. I held on to Clo since Friday. I did hold on to Clo since Friday because the analysis was there, but I've already closed majority of it. And the closed setup, if anyone's, you know, at loss, the closed setup was inside VIP. There's a couple coins that I've been mapping out for the last couple of weeks. Clo has been one of them. The light bulb moment, that's what's up. That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. That's what I like to hear. Yeah. That's what it's about, man. Just sparking the ideas, refining the skills, constantly refining. You guys like the earlier session? I think I came on right when New York was opening. I think I was like 8 minutes behind, but if this time frame works for you guys, then we'll try to keep the same time frame going forward. I know some people, a good portion of people are watching the playbacks. But the first 10 minutes of any one of these streams, you guys will hear my breakdown as far as what I'm trading, what my entries and stop losses would look like, what setup I have, what have you. And it's mainly going to be geared towards ETH. So if you're on this part of the playback, always know that if you're ever going to watch the playback, first 10 minutes, Saint's going to give his breakdown there. So you don't have to fast forward and look for it per se. Try to make it easy for you. Try to make it easy. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. My main focus right now is just seeing what this decides to do. What's to my left? Okay. I got a little gap right inside here. Okay. So I'm okay with running this tight. I'm okay with the stop loss. It's not going to kill me. It's not going to erode my port. Just means my entry was a little bit too early. So there was a little bit of resistance over here. We can see where that intent was because you had to push down to here. Act that as a point of resistance, found support on it, and then obviously had your push. So right now, all of this is retesting this right over here. Can still come lower. I'm not negating that. Yeah, it's you right here. So you're probably going to run my stop. All right, a little too early on that. You're going to run my stop. Yeah. This is the better entry. Because I'm beyond my 88. I'm inside that weirdness. Yeah, so about to run my stop here now in a second. You got an order block that sits right there, or the 1495, yeah. See if I'm gonna increase leverage a little bit on that. Oh, my max is 25. Okay, we'll just go to 25. That's fine. And 0, I'm gonna set a limit here. 1528. and set a limit at 15.28. So if I get stopped, fine. Lose a couple bucks. And then look at 15.29, 15.28. See if we can get FET to stick. Yeah, because I'm on a break a structure. So I actually don't even need that. So I'm adding more to my plate that I don't need. I just wanted that for confirmation. All right. So when you're trading smart money concepts, you want to try to enter on breaker structures. That's the idea. Enter on breaker structures. So let's drill down on this a little bit. Let's come over to a 15. All right, let's see if we can pull back up. Okay, that works so far. No, I'm probably lagging on my side. Yeah, I'm dropping frames on my side. And I can see it. That's all good. We'll start to wrap up here in the next couple of minutes. I wanted to run for 4 hours, but you know, if I'm running into that lag, that becomes an issue for us. So I want to look at tape surf real quick. See where ETH is at. Where's that? There's that 1750 area that I was talking about. Nice little shelf that sits here in that area. That takes us right back to here. You know, the bottom of that is right here. So fully anticipate to at least revisit that to some degree and then look for an add back on your short. If you're not already shorted. If you're not already short, then that's the level that I'm going to be adding back to mine. And that's the level I'm going to be taking. Because I think USDT is going to go for a little run here. It's probably going to clear some of this on the bottom right here. 8.6. Which would push ETH a little bit higher. And then it'll come right back down. That's how I would treat that. We'll see though. I know the lag is probably killing everybody right now. Yeah. I can see the frame rates are dropping. I don't know why it does that every now and then. All right. Well, you guys have